Come here, Biggie. Oh, this is Biggie Smalls. This is going to be the star. Oh. What is up, everybody? It is the Jaden here, and today's story time is going to be me telling a story about how I think God saved my dog. This is Biggie Smalls, the star of today's story. Go ahead. This is Irie. Irie's also the star of today's story time. Come here, Banks. And then this is Banks. He's not in today's story, but he's my family's other dog, so here he is. You can go. So like I said, today's story time is about how I believe God saved my dog and my family's dog, Biggie Smalls. So basically how this story started is me and my dad were going out to our small family cabin. It's a nice cabin. It just sits on a little inlet that comes out off of the river. And we kind of went out there. He was with a bunch of his friends, and this was probably at least 5 years ago. I don't remember the year, but it was a while ago. So we went out to this cabin, and he's hanging out with all his friends. And we have Biggie Smalls and Irie with us. My dad and his friends were shooting their guns, and then they set up some explosives, and I was watching them snipe the explosives and then watching them explode. And that was really cool to see. But unfortunately, no one was watching the dogs because we were all so distracted by how much fun we were having with that. And so we only realized about 20 or so minutes later that our two dogs were basically nowhere to be found. And we were kind of on a beachy type area. So they could have been anywhere. This was an unfamiliar place. So yeah, they took off somewhere and we had no idea where. And just for context, this cabin, it's pretty much in the middle of nature. So they could have gone in any direction and we would have no idea where they are. So then as soon as we realized that the dogs were missing, we kind of had a big oh shit moment. And we immediately started looking for them. And we let my mom and my sisters know that the dogs were missing at the cabin. And I'm pretty sure they came very shortly after that to help us look. We also all of my dad's friends obviously knew that the dogs were both missing. And then we also let neighbors know. And thankfully, basically, as soon as we started looking, we were able to find Irie because she's a little bit smarter. So we started looking. We had, what are they called? 4x4s? Gators? I don't know what they're called. We had those things that you drive around in just on country roads. And so we were driving around and we immediately spotted Irie. She was like covered in all these stickers and things, and she was just sitting by the side of the dirt road because, like I said, at least back then she was really smart. So that was good that we found her basically immediately, probably within our first half hour of looking for them. But unfortunately, they did not stick together. So then over the next, gosh, it was a long time. It was probably, we were shooting at about noonish. And then we ended up looking for the dogs until the sun started to go down. And this was summer. So I want to say it was probably for the next 7 or so hours. We were just looking anywhere and everywhere for where Biggie could possibly be. Like I said, this is kind of just like nature. It's off of a river. So there's some farming stuff going on. There were fields. There was forest to go through. So we were just kind of driving around looking anywhere and everywhere for the next 7 hours. It was hot and so many people were helping us look and we just could not find him absolutely anywhere. And then after all that time spent looking, everyone's hopes were starting to dwindle a lot and everyone was starting to get really sad because there was kind of this sense in the air that as soon as the sun went down, it would just be so much harder to look for him. And he's a small dog, and he's not like a dog that could actually fend himself off from anything. So there was basically this sense of dread that as soon as the sun went down, we'd have to stop looking. And then as a result of that, he probably wouldn't make it through the night. And who knows where he could be if he were to go walking through the night. So there was a sense that we had to find him before the sun went down. The sun was going down. Otherwise, we were probably never going to see him again. Or if we did see him again, we were probably just going to find his body because he's not the type of dog to be able to defend himself against basically anything. So after these 7 or so hours of searching for Biggie, everyone basically had no hope. We were super spread out. And I remember my family, we were looking, it wasn't a cornfield or anything. It was just kind of like an area, kind of like a meadow, but it had really tall grass and shrubs and things. And I remember I just had absolutely no hope that he would be there because we had already looked in like all the likely places. We looked all around where we were shooting the guns. We looked in all the surrounding areas, and now we were just kind of in these like desperate places that we hadn't looked yet, and like maybe he would be there, but really we were just kind of grasping at straws at that point. And even a lot of the neighbors had given up, which is fair considering that they helped us look for him for like hours and we already checked all the main places. So my family was really desperate and we were looking for him, and the sun was starting to set, and I remember we were just calling out his name. And that's got to be one of the saddest things, is when your family is all together and you're in somewhere where the dog, there's like, where the dog basically shouldn't be or where you wouldn't expect it to be. And yet you are all desperately calling out for your dog, for your family dog who's been with you for a long time, and who's basically a member of the family that you're not sure if you're ever going to see them again. So that was really sad. And as a result of that moment and that feeling being there and in being such a desperate situation, I, for some reason, I mean, I had just given up hope. So at that point, I decided to get down on my knees in the middle of this field where I didn't even think that he would be. And I got down on my knees, and I remember I just started bawling, praying my heart out to God, telling God that basically I would be willing to do anything in order to get Biggie back. Like, I would protect this dog with my life, and that I just cherished him so much, and that I didn't want him to have to suffer from either an animal getting to him or from him having to starve. And I just was so overcome by the thoughts that the sun was setting, and that if we didn't find him soon, that he was going to have to suffer all by himself, and that he would never get to spend any more time with us, and that he just basically, I didn't want him to have to suffer. So I got down on my knees there in that field and I just started praying my heart out. I looked at the field and it felt pointless, and I was ready to turn around and to stop looking at last. I just felt like I had done everything that I could do. And the field just kept going and going and going on forever, and it felt like he wouldn't even be there anyway, so there was basically no point, and the sun was setting. And then it was at that point that I stood up and felt like there was absolutely zero hope of finding him. It was at that point that heard whimpering coming from a long ways off, probably like 20 or so yards, just in the middle of this field, not like a cornfield, but like a field with tall grass and shrubs and trees. And I hadn't heard any whimpering up until that point. It was only until I sat down and got on my knees and prayed my heart out and then stood up and had lost all hope. It was at that point that I finally heard some whimpering, and then I started calling out his name and walking towards the whimpering, and basically there was this plant with kind of like three branches, and it looked like he had crawled into it and then gotten stuck between the branches and couldn't like actually get himself back out. And I remember I just cried and cried and cried when I found him, and I screamed out to my family members that I had finally found him. And I got to say that was definitely one of the happiest moments of my entire life, was going from that, having all that dread and anxiety and worry for him, to then hearing him and finding him and being able to tell my family members that I finally found him and that he was going to be okay. And then basically from there, we just took Irie and Biggie back to the cabin. We cleaned them up. They were both in sort of rough shape just because there were so many stickers around everywhere. But besides that, they were basically fine. So we cleaned them up. We kind of had a learning moment just to appreciate these dogs that we love and that we have and almost that we almost lost because of me and my dad's irresponsibility. Uh, just on a regular day, it's crazy to think that because our minds were somewhere else for 20 minutes, we almost lost these two dogs that are like family members to us. And so, obviously, the reason why I say in the title of this story that God saved my dog is because that really felt like a moment where God was revealing himself to me. And that was something that hadn't really happened at any point up up until that point in my life. There were times where I would maybe reach out to God in times of struggle, but it never felt like he had actually kind of revealed himself to me in that way. Whereas at this point, it seemed very, very obvious to me that after searching so long and after I had, after the results only came immediately after I got down on my knees and just completely prayed my heart out like I never had before. And then for me to find Biggie immediately after that just seems like so much of a coincidence at that point that it felt to me like God was revealing himself to me, and it would be less reasonable to call that a coincidence at that point than it is to trust in God and to have that faith and to believe that in that moment, God was revealing himself to me and doing me and my family a huge favor by saving Biggie from all of this suffering that he otherwise would have had to go through. And that's a big reason why nowadays I continue to put my faith into God. I continue to pray very often to ask for his strength and wisdom when it comes to certain things. I know that my story is only very convincing to me because I'm the one who lived through it. I understand that, but I do think it's valuable to share these moments that we go through where it seems like God is causing these everyday miracles. He's revealing himself. So that's all for today's story time. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know it was probably kind of a weird video, but it's just a story that I hold very near and dear to my heart and that I think is worth sharing for friends and family and for people who know Biggie and know the kind of dog that he is and the kind of relationship that I have with him. I mean, I took this dog to college and he lived with me there for a while, and he just has always been like my best friend before and after this incident. So I wanted to share this story. I hope you guys found it entertaining, maybe insightful. Maybe you can relate to it in some way with your own faith or just in your understanding of the universe and how things work. But that's about all I've got for you guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.